Okay. Hello, everybody. I think we're ready to start. I am. I don't know if everybody else is. Okay. All right. Okay. Now I think we're ready to start. Okay. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. For those who don't know me, my name is Mark, and I'm the director of the Dighton Public Library. For those of you who do know me, it's good to see you again.
He does a good job.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we're here tonight. We're going to talk about the new Dighton Public Library opening sometime this fall. Yes, I know it. Fall's going to be here before you know it. So we're looking forward to that. What this night is a community forum. We got an ADA grant to cover accessibility for the new library, and part of that grant is to have these open forums to get input from the community. So we're here tonight to get input, but before we jump into that, I think it's only appropriate for me to go through some of the renovation updates so you can see really what's going on. And I got to be honest with you, these are up-to-date photographs. I got these this week, so the only thing, unless something crazy happened in the last 2 days in the interior, which, spoiler alert, it didn't, these are the up-to-date photographs. So let's dive right in real quick. So this photo right here, this is the exterior of the building. I want to note, this is actually a doctored photo. There's actually, so to the right, you'll see there are some storage units there. To the left, there was a porta potty in the left-hand shot there. And there's a street sign right in front of that building, which is important because you got to yield for the crosswalk. So actually a former DR graduate, Nathan Sprague, my cousin, did a little photoshopping, so we have just the image of that. So that's my cover slide. That's my cover slide. Okay. This is what it looked like before, and by before I mean 2 years ago. Now, it looks familiar. Okay. So you can see there are two concrete stairs. There was one ramp to the right of the building that was not ADA compliant. There was no ramp on the left of the building, and in fact, the left of it looks like they're being held up by looks like posts or plywood or something there. Now this is what it looks like now. We have two new wooden stairs, two ADA compliant ramps, and Jonathan, by the way, this is Jonathan Gale, town's ADA coordinator, for those of you who don't know him. He actually measured the grade. Those ramps are perfect. The railings are perfect. And that's what it looks like now. But you can all see the exterior by driving by or walking by. You haven't seen the interior yet in a while, I bet. All right. Now we're going to get into some good stuff. Okay. This is the foyer. This is what it originally looked like when the town bought the building for the library. You can see those were stairs there. You can't see the stairs, but take my word for it. Those actually are stairs. This is what it looks like now. The stairs have been removed. And the reason the stairs were removed is because for ADA reasons, the building didn't have an elevator. So to have stairs that went down to the basement would have made it not ADA compliant. And would have been an issue. So either we get an elevator for the building, which was way out of our budget, or we remove the stairs. And so we removed the stairs. Fine. There are now no more stairs in the foyer. It's going to be a great entryway. We're going to walk in. We're going to have it carpeted. We're going to have a nice radial bookcase underneath the windows. Seasonal books. There'll be a little rotating display of books there. I've got two spinner racks that are going to go next to that case. So it's going to be a really neat, welcoming space. It's the first thing you're going to see when you walk in the building. This is the main hall. Well, what it looked like before the town bought it for the library. This is what it looked like after the town bought it. Okay? So if we go back one slide, you can see there's a stage there. There was no ramp onto the stage. The only way onto that stage was by means of a stairway, 3 or 4 stairs. But the number of stairs didn't matter. The fact that they were stairs and no ramp means that they were stairs. So what we did, with the help of the BP students, they built the stairs and that ramp. So now, if you get onto that stage, you can do so in an ADA compliant way. This is what it looks like now. So you can see that, and it's freshly coated paint. That wall right there, let me go back. So what's going to be on that stage is going to be the children's section, okay? There was some discussions that the children's section didn't necessarily want kids to be sort of on exhibit or in sort of a fishbowl element, as it were. So by constructing this, whoops, wrong way. So by constructing that wall there, we have the children's section sort of in the same room, but yet a separate room. So it was a really nice solution. We're actually going to put shelving there as well. And the ramp is actually, it's almost like a tunnel. So it's going to be a really neat, it's going to be a neat place for kids. I can just see kids racing up that ramp to get the children's section. I mean, I would have done that as a kid. That's what the main hall looks like now. And you can even see on the floor, there are some grills on the floor right now, which means the H-work has started. And those grills just aren't for show. Some of those grills actually have ductwork associated with them. So the HVAC work began last month, and it is really progressing in earnest. So we're excited about that. I'm going the wrong way again. There we go. So as you can see, those are the stairs on the left, and the ramp right there. So you can see what I'm talking, sort of like a nice little tunnel area. It's going to be pretty cool. It already is cool. And we thank the BP students for constructing that. Up on the stage, we have the children's room. This is what it looked like during construction and renovation. Sort of like an obstacle course, which was, well, not what we were going for in the children's section. But luckily, that's all cleared off, and we have a nice, clear children's section. Freshly painted. We have window trim. This is going to be carpeted. I haven't chosen the carpet yet, but it will be a carpet. It'll be a nice space. We have staff offices. You can see there's a door on the right-hand side of your screen right there. This is a staff-only area. This is where the behind-the-scenes cataloging, sensitive documents are going to be kept. There, at one point in time, was what we call an executive washroom in there. We have some people laugh, right? Okay. So the joke is, it really wasn't an executive washroom. It was basically, how do I describe it? It was a bench with 2 holes in it, and that was like the 19th century bathroom. That has been removed, and in its place, we have this. Yes, yes. That's going to be a really nice behind-the-scenes place for staff to work, do their cataloging, tech services. I'm going to have a spot back there to keep, personnel records, pay bills, all that boring behind-the-scenes stuff. But just as important nonetheless.
Is that wood that's part of the wainscoting that was removed and painted white?
Correct, yes, yes.
And also, I think it should be noted that the guys from the highway department have been doing that.
Yep. I'm going to give a major shout out to the highway department in a few slides later, but yes, the gentleman from the highway department, they did a lot of work on this room, and it turned out really, really nice. So we're appreciative for that. We have a staff break room. That's not what it looks like now. That's what it looked like originally. The reason this room is going to be available as the staff break room or staff lunchroom is because there was actually a bulkhead here because there were some stairs that led down into the basement. As I said earlier, we got rid of all stairs for accessibility issues. So now, because the room was basically just a bulkhead. So with the stairs gone, that opens up an entire room, so we get to go from this to that. And again, the highway department did a really, really good job with that so far. It's not quite done. We're going to add a sink with that countertop. There's going to be a fridge in the corner. There's going to be a table for staff to sit, but that's going to be a nice place for staff, to hang out. I'd say have some fun, but, we have fun no matter what room we're in. So that's, that goes without saying. Now we want to get to the program room. In the program room, this work, you can see, was done by the BP students. You can see in the back corner there, that door, the floor was raised. Now, the question is, why was the floor raised? Well, you can see in order to get to that room, you had to go down some stairs. Again, for ADA reasons, stairs are a no-no. So we couldn't remove the stairs, so we raised the floor so that the stairs wouldn't be an issue. And you can actually see on the image on your right, the wainscot is still there, so it's kind of a really neat look. And for a while, the railing was still there. So you'd be walking on a level surface with this railing that was going down. It was actually really cool. The wainscot's still there for now, but it's actually really nice. And again, we want to thank the highway department for all the finish work. There's going to be a sink in there for the program room. It'll be a nice place to do crafts. There's going to be a place for lecture. Anything you could possibly imagine, within reason, is going to be in there. This is what it looked like before. It was a kitchen. And this is what it looks like now. Mm-hmm. So you can see there's a little bit of an alcove near the window. There's a podium we're going to have in there, not quite this size, a little sleeker. And I want to thank the Friends of the Dighton Public Library for funding that podium. But my thanks don't stop there. There's actually going to be a projector screen and a projector, so it's going to be a good place for lectures. You can have meetings. It's going to have Zoom capabilities. The Friends funded all that technology fit out, so they really deserve a lot of thanks for that and the generosity. It was a big ask, but it's going to make that room really, really pop. That's going to be the program. It's going to be a bookable space. Meetings can be held there. Programs, events, children's activities. It's going to be really neat. Now, there's one more room, the reading room. That's what I'm calling it. This is what it looked like before. You can see the centerpiece in this room as that fireplace. Okay, for some reason, I don't know how long ago, it was painted over. So what we decided to do, we sandblasted it. Now you say, why would you do that? Because we wanted the original brick in the room. So there it is. I think the captains speak for themselves. So that's what it looks like now. Yep. And we're actually going to have so that chandelier hanging in front of that fireplace is not the chandelier we're going to go with. We're going to go with a Victorian-style period chandelier. And if we need to, we may even have some sconces. Yes, thank you. We may have some of those. It depends. We'll see how it goes. The director needs to learn that word first. I'm getting there. Now, why am I showing you a picture of a wall with two electrical outlets on it? Okay, there's a reason for that. So this is the program room. The reading room. And we have a period chandelier with the period fireplace, but then on the wall opposite of that fireplace, we're going to have a smartboard. So it's a really neat juxtaposition. And again, I want to thank the Friends for funding the purchase of that smartboard. They've done a lot for this project, and so far, and they're going to do a lot more. I know it. But in this room, it's like the historic room, and the books that are going to be in that room, we're going to have local reference, some of the older books. If you remember, you can think back to 395 Main Street. There was sort of that historic book section in that little case. Those books are going to be in this room. But at the same time, it's going to have a smartboard on the wall that can do all the things, the internet, all the things a smartboard can do. There's also going to be a table with chairs. We're going to have a dimmer switch in this room so we can control the light. We can get soft lighting if we need it. We're also going to have a darker shade on the window, so there can be soft light in this room. So it's going to be a really neat space to sit, read, do work, any kind of thing you want. But it's going to have that smartboard so you can zoom into a meeting or something. So it's a really neat juxtaposition. Going to be a really cool room. There's going to be a desk in that room to the right of that fireplace. I'm going to hang out in the room most of the time, because it's probably going to be my favorite room. Not that I like the other rooms less. I just have a hunch that's going to be my favorite room. And I should. So if you ever drive by the library, you'll see some storage units. Okay. Those storage units are full with shelving, tables, chairs, all the things we're going to use to outfit the building when we're ready to move in. We're ready to go. The units are full. As soon as we get the word from the building commissioner to move that stuff in, we're going to move it in, we're going to set it up, and then moving the books in, we're going to open the space. Timeline right now, I feel very good saying that we're looking at a fall opening date. I'm hopeful it's early fall. Fall is, fall could be anything. I'm hopeful it's early fall. I do believe it's going to be fall. So when that happens, in the fall, we're going to move all that stuff in before the fall, of course. So that's my little brief overview. I go back to that photograph. For those who weren't here and came in late, I want to shout out this photograph. Is actually sort of a doctored Photoshop photograph by a Dighton grad, Nathan Sprague. Want to give a shout out to that. He's also my cousin. So basically that's my little overview of the library, where the renovations are at. And now I want to turn it over to ADA coordinator Jonathan Gale. So what this is an open forum. We want to talk about sort of programs and anything that you think should be included in this new library. But I wanted to give the overview first, because if you're here to talk about the library, you got to at least see some cool behind-the-scenes things, and at least at the very bare minimum, get an update on where we are. So having done that, I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan.
Really?
Absolutely, I promise. Yes, really.
Okay. So,
Take it away.
And I'm not going to use the podium because if anybody has questions, we'd prefer you to come up to the podium, because that way cable can get your voice, since this is being put out on cable and recorded. So if you do have questions, if you can come up to the podium, that would be great. I don't need to use it. My voice, like Mark's, we both have voices that project, I think, quite well. So as I'm speaking, I'm going to ask Mark to pass out the 2 handouts that I have. And I'm going to give you all 2 minutes first before we get going just to look at those 2 handouts, because that's going to address a lot of what I'm going to be talking about and looking for the feedback that we want from all of you who are here.
There is one thing I want to mention real quick while the handout's getting passed out. I do want to say, as far as the budget goes for the project, that we're right on track with all of our budgetary lines. We have a special article that was approved at town meeting in June 2023, and we have 58% of the funds in that article remaining. And with the project winding down, that we're in really good shape. We have, for the HVAC work, we got a $200,000 grant for that project, and that is also winding down, and so in really good shape with that as well. We have CPC funds that we haven't touched, the tune of, let's see, $323,000 we also haven't touched. So we're in very good shape. That's not even taking into account the $11,000 remaining in the ADA grant we have for accessibility. So as far as the budget goes, this project will be done on time, and it will be done within the budgetary parameters set, and so I cannot deliver any more positive news than that.
So the 2 documents that you all have that you feel free to keep, by the way, are going to kind of discuss and dictate what we're going to be talking about for the next little while. And one of the documents, of course, is just, an example of, 25 or so different types of disability that we have to think about in terms of the library. The other document are the things that we have to think about in terms of accessibility. And this is, in many ways, it covers the full circle, but at the same time, it's sort of the tip of the iceberg, because when we're talking about disability, we're talking about young children to seniors, people who are hearing impaired, people who are visually impaired, people who may have physical challenges, and just as many people who have emotional or intellectual challenges. So when you're looking at these things, what you want to keep in mind is that statistically, what they say is that 1 out of 20% of our population have some sort of a disability. Most people have a hidden disability, so you don't know it outwardly. Diabetes is a disability, for example. A brain injury is a disability, for example. But those are things that you don't necessarily see. The person, quote unquote, looks normal, unquote. What the difference is the people who have a non-hidden disability, or somebody like me. I'm totally blind. I have a white cane. That's how I get around. So my disability is obvious, especially if somebody sees my cane out or something like that. Somebody in a wheelchair, same thing. You might not know a person is profoundly deaf until you see them using sign language, for example. So there are a lot of different ways to couch disability. Asperger's, autism. Everybody hears the word autism these days. Asperger's is at the higher intellectual end generally. The autism component is usually at the middle to lower intellectual end and comprehension end, but that's not always the case either. So when you look at the list that you have there, what you want to keep in mind is that the goal of this library, as I think the goal is for a lot of things that we do in town as ADA, little background there I think for a second, I'll digress for a second. When I first started as the ADA coordinator in town, the town wasn't addressing the things that they needed to do for disability for the most part. They tried, but they didn't have any guidance or anything like that. Since I've been the ADA coordinator for just about 5 years now, we've gotten almost $800,000 in grants for things that we've done for the town to improve accessibility for all of our friends and residents who use our different services. And some of the examples are going to be the ramp right here that goes up to the stage. That was something that we put in. Making the side door with the ramp accessible, even here. That was something that we did. When you go into town hall and the lavatories are accessible, that was something that we did with the grant. We have one of the best websites in the state, if you look at the town website, for accessibility now. That long, winding walkway that some people love and some people hate at town hall, That was done with accessible funds and grants as well from the Mass Office on Disability. We had to do that, for example, because the ramp that was going to Town Hall didn't meet the accessibility requirements anymore. Those were long overdue. So that's why we have that walkway, and then as a short version, we have the stairs that go up to the Town Hall. The lavatories, as I said, are accessible. The doors are accessible, and electric going into the lavatories, things like that. So the parks, some of you have seen some of the parks as well. We've put money into the parks. We have plans to do a lot more in the park areas, things like that, other places in town. So accessibility in Dayton is really just beginning. And I think one of the few places we're going to end up having that's really fully accessible, not just for the physical access, but for what we're going to be able to offer residents, is going to be the new library. That's something that I think Mark and I and the other members of the Library Building Committee have worked really hard on, to make sure that the library is accessible and inclusive for every single resident, adult, child, senior, friend who wants to use the library. So let's start with the ramps. We have the 2 ramps. Those are now fully compliant. We worked with the building commissioner and with the highway department to get them installed correctly, the measurements to meet all the criteria. The front doors will be electric. So whether you're a person with a disability or somebody holding a small child in your arms, you're going to be able to use the electric button just like you might at a supermarket or somewhere else, and press the button, doors will open. The lavatories inside are going to have electric door as well. The ramp that Mark alluded to that goes up to the children's area, that's, again, for purposes of making sure that everyone has full access. Wheelchair, walker, there's still going to be stairs there if somebody wants to use them, but don't have to. The program rooms, the soft lighting that Mark alluded to, that's something because a lot of people who have different types of disability, for example, somebody on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, many people have a difficult situation with a lot of different types of lighting. Bright lighting can affect the way people act and react. They might want soft lighting. They may need a soft, quiet space where there's not a lot of noise around. So that's an example of something that the reading room will provide as well. Example, the dark shade that Mark referenced. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but to somebody who needs those considerations, it's a big deal. We're going to have technology for people with different types of disability. So not only are we going to have workstations with computers that will have speech built in for people like myself who are totally blind, with special programs that they can just press a button and when the computer comes on, it will talk automatically. And then it can also, the talking can be disabled by the librarian so that if somebody else needs to use those computers, they're going to be able to, and we don't have to worry about those programs being destroyed or removed or anything like that. We're going to have programs in the computers for individuals that have dyslexia, for example, that have other types of reading disability as well, so that if they need certain types of brightness on their screen or they need things to be in certain font size, we're going to have programs that cover all of that. In all of we'll have at least 2. We'll have one computer that's available for everyone at all times that has these things built into it, and then we'll have a second one that's a laptop, so if somebody needs to take it to a different area of the library and do that as well. So those are just a few of the things that we're going to have. We're going to be doing workshops that are fully inclusive if we need to. If we have requests for sign language interpreters or CART interpreters, or people need things in Braille, Mark will contact me. We'll be able to make those arrangements if we have group events like that. If people need materials in large print, we're going to hook people into the Talking Book Library out of Watertown as well, so that people who are visually impaired or dyslexic, for example, again, can get books through their phones and so forth. We can connect them with those types of things. And then we're going to do a lot of different types of workshops. We want to be able to use those rooms in the library to offer you, the residents, programming. It might be about Social Security. Now, Social Security is quasi-disability and quasi-retirement, sort of a little bit of both. So we might do seminars on how to obtain Social Security, how to apply for Social Security, what's SSI, what's SSDI, housing programs for people with disabilities we can do seminars with. Lots of activities for families that have children with disability. We've talked about potentially having, certain days set aside for families that have children with different types of disability. And, there might be, there's classes for all kinds of things. There might be a time when those kids who need special services and resources can be brought together so that they can all share the experience of the library together with the parents and the kids, depending upon age level and programming. So these are just a few of the things that we're looking to do. But the goal right now, by giving you these 2 sheets, is to, number one, get you to think about all the different types of disability that potentially we have to think about. And second of all, to give you an idea of the things we think about in building the library, to make sure that it's accessible, to make sure that there's nobody, and I keep saying this over and over, that there is nobody who's left behind because you're not able to access the library. Hence the ramp, hence, the electric doors, hence all those things that we've talked about. So there won't be, I hate to use the word an excuse, but there won't be an excuse for anybody who wants to use the library to physically be able to use the library. If you want to take advantage of it, it's there. What I'd like to hear from all of you, and this is part of one of the grants that we have, was from the American Library Association. It's a rural library grant. And part of that money is being used for the physical side of things we have to do, the electric doors, the computers, and so forth. But part of the money is also to hold forums like this so that we can hear from all of you the questions you have. Maybe there's questions I can answer. Maybe there's some I can't answer right now, but I can get back to you. But I'd like to hear from all of you some of the ideas of things that you think of for services and resources for disability. Some of you might have a disability. You might have a family member that has a disability of some sort. So this is a chance for us to hear from you, not just for me to be a talking head and tell you about what we're going to do and what we can do. I think what we're going to be doing, you're going to see right from the get-go. It's not just going to be the ramps. It's going to be the services and the resources. That big smart board that Mark talked about, and the font size for you to be able to see. So there's somebody that's halfway across the room, they're going to be able to see that thing. If there's other services and resources that somebody comes up and asks for, if Mark can't provide it, he's going to reach out to me, and we're going to do everything we can to provide it. But this is really a chance for us to hear from all of you. So I don't know if anybody wants to go first. Somebody always has to go first. So if anybody has any thought at all, go. Yep.
Please.
This isn't a town meeting. You don't need to identify yourself and your street address, by the way.
Luckily, we know who you are.
Yes.
Question, concern, outside lighting. That area is twofold. One, responsibility of the library for the parking lot area, but also if you drive by there at night, that whole area is dark. So I'm wondering if there could be some advocacy with National Grid to provide more street lighting. And secondly, I'd like to hear what plans are made to address the lighting concerns. That if you drive by there, you know what I'm talking about. It's dark.
You want to address that? Or?
Yeah, I can do that. So that's come up during the committee, the lighting issues. I can't speak to the street lights, but I can speak to the building lighting. And what's come up is that the building will be lit. There'll be lighting on the building, so the building itself will be lit. But as far as street lighting, I can't speak to that, but I can at least say the building itself will be lit. So the parking lot itself won't be completely dark because the lighting on the building will illuminate.
Just wonder if the BOS could be, or Ralph, if he could give some help advocating.
Yep, that's a possibility. I do want to say that a lot of the discussions that have been had at the building committee right now have been really had about the renovations and just getting the building to open. And I know once we get to the point where the building is opening, we're talking grand opening, I know the discussions are going to shift more towards discussions like that. But just because we haven't had them in depth thus far doesn't mean they have been brought up, or at least on our mind, because that's been brought up a couple times. And I'm not going to say the can was kicked down the road, because that's the wrong expression to use. But talking about the HVAC work and all the renovations to get open and to get occupancy have sort of kind of taken, at least at this stage, a higher priority. But I know we're going to get there at some point. And it has been broached at least a couple times, and the building will be lit. There'll be lighting on the building.
I think
that was a long roundabout way to say that there'll be lighting on the building. But I said it.
Yeah, I think in midsummer, with the building committee, we'll be at a point then when we have a much better idea of target date. We'll be in a better position then to look at landscaping, potentially. we'll be able to look at lighting because we know it's important for people to see where they're walking and also to feel safe outside when they're going to their cars in the evening, for example. So lighting, whether it's going to be from the building or it might be solar lighting or something like that that's otherwise there. Whether we've even talked about the potential for cameras outside so that for the parking areas, things like that, in case anything ever happened or whatever. There's things that we're still considering for the outside. Some of it will be whether we can do it aesthetically because of the building itself. Remember, this is an historic building. So to some extent, we have to keep the integrity of the historic building. So we're limited to some extent, I think, on what we can physically do that would connect to the building. So because of that, it's really looking at other ways to do things outside. We're aware that safety is a key factor on everybody's mind, so that's all I can tell you on that. And I think Mark's answered that too. Questions, thoughts, ideas?
Couple of questions, but no.
Oh, that's fine.
I got a big mouth.
That's fine.
It's okay.
For recording purposes, I can just repeat the questions.
It's not about accessibility or anything like that. I just have two questions. One is, you mentioned there's gonna be a couple of computers, one for the general public to use whenever. Is it gonna be like just a little area off to the side where they have their privacy? And then the other thing was, is there gonna be, like an area where, say, for instance, I go in and I'm not sure which book I want, and I take a couple of books, is there gonna be a place that I can go and sit and relax and read, like just what's going on in this particular book?
Absolutely. So I breezed through this slide, but I probably shouldn't have, because this is the main hall. So this is when you first walk in, out of the foyer, into the main hall. The first thing on your right is going to be the circulation desk, and that's always going to be someone there, okay? All the shelving runs, there's going to be 6 runs in this room, but when you walk past the circulation desk, before you get to the runs, there's actually going to be a nice, big, long table with chairs. It's going to be a place to sit. It's going to be a place to do all kinds of things. You can bring a computer, charge your phone, all that stuff. You can sit there. It's right basically adjacent to the stacks. So you can get your book, you can sit there. But if you need an even quieter space, the reading rooms, there's going to be a table in the reading room as well for that. So yes, there is a place to do that. And I know you had that question, but what was your first question was? I'm sorry.
Just to answer.
The computer.
Yep. So the table in the main hall there is going to have computer workstations, and also the
there'll be a
table in the
couple.
reading room is also going to have computer workstations as well.
So there'll be a few stations.
Yes.
I think, and also there's going to be a teen room. And the reason I mentioned the teen room is, during the day, during school, the chances of any teens being in there are going to be very low. But that doesn't mean somebody else can't go in there. And it's going to be a very comfortable room, again, with workstations and so forth as well, or to plug your devices in if you need to. So you're going to be able to go in there during the day when the kids are at school and relax and read in there as well. Plus, there's the reading room. So there's several different places.
To follow up on what Jonathan said, the teen room actually, so when you walk in here, on the right is the circulation desk. You take a left, that's where the teen room is going to be. And you can see the wainscoting along the wall there. That's a 4-foot-high wainscoting. The teen room is going to be built out with a storefront, so it's going to match the 4-foot-high wainscot, so it's going to look like it was built into the building all along. So when I show you the before and after shot, you're going to be like, wow, that's crazy how the change like that. But so the team is going to be when you walk in on the left. Yes. Again, I breezed past this slide. I don't know why I did that. It's the biggest room in the whole building, and I breezed right past it. But thank you for the question, because it got me to go back to the slide.
More questions?
Yes.
So comfortable chairs will have armrests, that's what I'm seeing.
Yep, I've ordered all kinds of varying. I've ordered chairs without armrests, chairs with cushions without armrests, chairs with armrests, and chairs with cushions with armrests. I got everything covered.
Actually, the only thing he didn't order yet is the massage chairs.
Yes, I did not order that yet. Couldn't find one that I liked.
Actually, if you were gonna, I don't know if the library really does have a massage chair or not.
We do not yet.
No,
Yet.
But Ocean State, if you're a crazy deal member or whatever, sometimes they'll have massage chairs and you can buy them, but then they give you a crazy deal. Which means,
Yep.
yeah, which you can spend like $2,000 afterwards, so if you were actually thinking of that.
We're going to get a massage chair where it's $7.95 to use it for 15 minutes.
But to answer you, we have all kinds of chairs, of varying comforts and armrests and.
I have one more question. Sorry.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
So with the fireplace, I
Yep.
don't have like an electric ability that you can still see like a fake fire, or it's just for decoration?
That, as far as it was can Pat speak decoration? Okay, I thought it was decoration. Yeah.
Because if you could get one of those little revolving lights that you just plug in, that would give you the effect of a fire.
It would. I can say though, there will be no real fire in the library. I can say that. We're not starting one of those.
And I agree with you.
Okay, yes. So that I can say. That I can say with certainty.
More questions, thoughts?
The basement
Yes.
portion
Mhm.
that's not being utilized right now.
Mhm.
Any plans in the way distant future to do something with that? Because it sounds like you blocked off
Mhm.
access to that basement from
So that's a good question about the basement. Right now, the only accessible way into the basement is through an exterior door. So there is no way inside the building. If you're inside the building, there is no way to get into the basement if you're already inside the building. That was done for ADA reasons. However, someday in the future, far future,
Not in my lifetime.
far future, the far future, if the building ever gets an elevator, that opens up everything. The building gets an elevator, then suddenly the building is ADA accessible, and we're ADA compliant,
And we did
can utilize that space.
We did look at the way this building is being reconstructed now, leaving a certain space where theoretically we can put an elevator. But as Mark said, that's years down the road. I think we all can collectively agree there's enough things we're dealing with in town in terms of taxes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, at this point, so that visiting, the potential of making that basement area accessible right now, it's not going to happen for quite. I would love it as the ADA coordinator, but it's just prohibitively too expensive to do right now.
I just have to say, having grown up in town, and from the time we were kids, and I think you guys can agree with me, that the Carnegie Building was the library, and it was already too small. And now, I'm an elder, oh my gosh, did I say that out loud?
I didn't hear what you said.
And we have this building, this is gonna be like a beautiful building, and it meets Dayton's needs. Do I expect in 20 years, I'd say take another 100 years to do more? Historically, that's the way it's worked.
Well, I think, you're right. I think as Mark and you and others have said, basically, we refer to this as the new library. But it's a new library in an historical building,
Right.
which is kind of cool if you think about
What
it.
does Ron say, it's a 20?
18. It is an 18th century building. We're moving from a 20th century building into a 19th century building with 21st century technology.
Well, my favorite thing to say is that the new library is older than the old library.
Yes.
That's my favorite thing to say.
It's true.
That's why I said it.
So is there any kind of programming, resources, workshops, anything at all? It doesn't necessarily have to be disability related, per se. It doesn't have to focus on disability. We're sharing the disability component because that's a big component of how this new library is being put together and what it's going to offer. But having said that, are there certain types of programming, resources, activities, whatever it might be, that any of you can think of, just think out loud, think out of the box, you'd like to see in the library? I think that would be really important for Mark and I both to hear about.
Since this town does not have a cultural center, I'd like to see an area or the ability to have the soloists come in. You use it as a fundraiser, cocktails, or cultural music type cultural activities at the library.
So cultural, you would periodically have different cultural events. Okay.
The only drawback I see to that is that this room holds more people than the main,
The pro-
then the reading
The
room.
program, the reading room, I don't have the actual occupancy numbers yet, but I can say with certainty that this room would hold more than any room.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean, the occupancy is not, it's not gonna be like 2 people, I think the program is maybe 16 to 20 people occupancy, don't quote me on that, I'm not a building official, but I think it's gonna be around that, but, so we can do
But
some
that's
stuff,
that,
we'll have rooms
how
to
many,
do it.
what's the occupancy gonna be for the entire building? Do you know?
I don't have that number yet, no.
Yeah, and that's, I think, is more what you're alluding to. If you're thinking of like, if you had an evening where somebody was coming and playing the violin or something, but it was also a cultural thing, and there was a cocktail event, and people were wandering around and so forth, is that what you're,
Yes, exactly.
okay.
Similar
Yeah.
to what they do with the Taunton Historical Society.
Right, so that might change the parameter a little bit in terms of the whole facility. But I don't know that Mark has those numbers yet. That comes,
I don't have those
that would
numbers
come
yet,
from the
no.
fire department.
I saw a question in the back.
Just wondering about, I'm not sure where property line falls in the back of that lot, but is there gonna be talks of like an outdoor space where there's like a seating area? Like I know landscaping was kind of touched upon, so I don't know if that's like.
Well, landscaping was something that we've talked about it during the building committee meetings,
Yeah,
but we talked about it only in that, we'll have to talk about it later.
yeah.
That's really the discussion we talked about. I don't know the actual property lines behind the building. I do know, and this is actually an interesting note. The parking lot, so there's 2 parking lots to the building. The one on the left, which is the larger parking lot, and the one on the right, which is the smaller parking lot. It turns out we only own half of that smaller parking lot. The entire lot, that's not actually ours. So that's why the main parking lot is going to be the larger one, which we own all of. And the smaller one is just like a staff-only parking lot. So I know that there are some issues, not issues, but there are some things going on with the property lines that I don't. If only I knew one. If you have any recommendations, I'd love to talk to them. Thank you.
Yeah, I think in all
I think-
fairness to
and-
Mark,
and-
he
and had a
wasn't here
question.
when that building was purchased. I'm not making an excuse, I don't mean it that way, but I think it's hard to answer some of those questions for him.
Yes, sir.
It's not a question, it's something I'd like to see in the library.
Perfect.
Is a lending library where you could borrow fishing pole, ukulele,
Oh, like a library of things?
a library
Yep.
of things.
Yep.
Didn't have to be a big.
Yeah, that's something I've had discussions with staff about probably since I've started here.
Right.
And so it's on their minds, and it's on my mind, and we will have an actual library to do that. So yeah, now we're gonna back. I know we have a whole bunch of kits too that are all
Yes.
boxed up on Main Street, so we're gonna bust those out again. So that's something that's on the forefront of our minds.
And we will still have a computer for lending also?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Regarding the building committee,
Mhm.
have they reached, we've used DR, we've used BP.
Mhm.
Have we reached out to Bristol Aggie where they have a full landscaping?
We have not officially reached out to Bristol Aggie yet, as far as I know.
That's been discussed.
It has been discussed.
Right, it has been.
Design and the actual work?
It has been discussed, but we would have to reach out to them so they can put us on their list in the very beginning of the fall in September,
That'd be a huge
right when
savings,
school opens.
Because you're only paying for material.
Yep.
That's right. And I mean, the students do great work. I mean, we have the BP students, they built the ramp, the stairs, they did the carpentry work for the program room. They're doing electrical work now. They do good work. I have very good things to say about them. Yes,
I have 3 questions.
fire away.
One, are you gonna have an area where students can have tutoring? I used to do tutoring.
Yep.
So there will be.
Yep, so
that?
there'll be a teen room. The program will be a bookable space, so if it's booked tutoring in the program room, no one else is taking the program room. If it's booked program tutoring in the teen room, no one's taking the teen room. If it's booked tutoring in the reading room, no one's taking the reading room. So there'll be plenty of bookable spaces for a variety of different
Because
things.
that used to be a huge problem for me, where it was just like an open. and
Won't be a problem in the new library.
Good. And then outside, if you have area, I don't know what the space is, for like maybe a little bench or picnic table, little garden, maybe little butterfly shrub bushes, that'd be really nice to sit outside and enjoy the books as well.
So that's one of the benefits to having this forum, because I don't think anything like that has been brought up in discussion yet. So,
And then
Thank
one more,
Yes.
I had mentioned this in the past, is the children's room gonna be like fun, colorful, kind of like Somerset
Yes.
Library, toys, I know like kids love it there, it's like a museum, like there's so much to do.
Yep.
Yeah?
yep, so there are a few things in the reading. The reading room, we have we have the windows that are a different color. We have the carpet that's going to be a different color, so it's going to be bright. It's going to be welcoming. There's going to be tables, small little table, cloud-shaped tables. There's going to be chairs. We already had the chairs there, little wooden chairs shaped like animals. It's actually really neat. Our children's librarian did a really good job picking those out. Put a lot of thought into it. The toys, puzzles, all that stuff. The lights. I talked about the period chandelier in the reading room with the fireplace. We also are going to have hanging lights in the main hall. We're going to have hanging lights in the children's room, but they're a completely different style. There's three lights. We have 2 cloud lights and 1 circular light that's yellow, so it's like the sun's in between 2 clouds. So we're again, I give credit to the children's librarian for that as well. But that to answer your question, that is going to be a nice space that I think children and their parents are going to enjoy going to. Thank you.
And then there'll also be, I think, just to clarify a little bit, when you go up the ramp to the children's room, if you come up the ramp this way, for example, then along here in the front of it, there's a wall, there's like that artificial, the same kind of wall that Mark talked about for the teen room at a 4-foot level. So there's going to be that frosted glass look. So, people can't just see what all the children are doing and running around in there. But it's enough so that it gives it a much more open feeling, not just to the kids who are up there, but to parents that are, wandering off or something like too. If they leave a 7 or 8-year-old in there for a few minutes, it's not an enclosed place where they just can't see what's going on. So I think it'll make the kids and the parents feel like, on one hand, it's a closed room, but it's also open enough that people can be aware and see the activities that are going on in there.
And also, speaking of that ramp, I don't know if you've been to our children's section now, the one that's in the basement of Town Hall. I take it by your laughter you have. Okay, excellent. But our children's librarian, there's a hallway there. And our children's librarian, she has photo contests, choose your own adventure storyline. We can apply the same thing, except now it's going to actually be on the ramp up to the children's section. So we're going to take some of the same ideas that were sort of born in whatever this tech situation we're in here. Yes. And we're just applying them. So that's going to be a good space to incorporate that. Yes, question.
So I think this is all wonderful, first and foremost. So
Thank you.
for all of the work that you've done. I do have one question that I might have missed the answer to.
Yes.
In light of the fact that it's a historical building, is there any, going to be any sort of plaque or anything that's going to designate the history of the building itself for the visitors that come in?
Yes. Would you like to answer that?
Go ahead, Pat. Yes.
Yes. And actually, if you're interested in the history of the building, we have a speaker speaking in June, the 4th Thursday in June. All right. The speaker's actually here right now. Going to talk about the history of the building.
I'm going to talk about Anna Marie Talbot Smith. Alfred Smith built the building in memory of his wife Anna Maria. And she was a Talbot, and Talbots are very big in town. And he was a real estate mogul in Newport. So,
Awesome.
Pat Gale, Chair of our Historical Commission.
I do have a follow-up question, said
Go
with
ahead.
sarcasm. What was the final decision on the sconces? I know you mentioned that you were going to put them, I was on, just so you know. Put them on the wall, but he was struggling with the sconces.
So the final decision on the sconces.
ask him to define those.
I heard all about it, I did.
So in all seriousness, so the final decision on the sconces is the Granite City Partners, our architect, is going to run a lumens test to make sure the lighting fixtures we chose can actually light the room enough.
Nice.
Yeah, and so if the answer is no, it doesn't light the room enough, then we will pursue the sconces. If the answer is yes, it's perfectly fine, then it's the decision if we want to go sconces or not, but it's not something that we would need to pursue if we didn't need to.
And at least now you know what they are.
Well, you got to start there.
And I think too, Mark, you should note that we talked about sconces, but the wall space much, because we do want to put some historical pictures up and stuff. And plus with the smart board, so the placement of the sconces could be an issue, you know. Because you and I tried to figure out where they would go.
Yes.
and so-
After you explain to me what they are.
And also because because of the historical nature of the building and the walls and so forth, and the way it's designed, it makes a difference on where and how they can run wiring
Right.
and put outlets, or, you know, even just where you can plug something through a wall or feed it through and so forth. So, you know, that's been a little, not an issue, but it's something that they really had to look at in terms of where we're placing everything that's going to have outlet access for the technology, for the lighting, for everything.
Do we have a question in the back?
What if people are like choking or can't breathe on the floor?
Do you have a first aid station?
We will have a first aid station, yes. We will
Yes.
also have a phone where we can call 911. Yes. But we will have first aid kits available,
That's a good
defibrillator
question.
available. Yeah, yeah.
Good question.
Thank you.
More questions, more thoughts?
And we have an AED. If someone's having a heart attack.
Oh, yes, yes. Yes,
Yep.
Yeah,
thank you.
and the changing table in the children's room.
Correct,
Yes.
correct. Thanks again to purchase by the Friends. So the bathroom adjacent to the children's section is going to have a baby changing table, something that the previous bathroom at the old Main Street didn't, well, the phone booth bathroom at Main Street didn't have. And the bathroom adjacent to the children's section now does not have, so, yeah, that way there'll be a baby changing station there. So that was a very important purchase. We're looking forward to that.
So I heard Mr. Hull suggest and ask about having events for cultural purposes and so forth. But if any of you had a wish list of activities you'd like to see in this library, what would they be? Anyone?
Book group,
All right,
cookbook group,
okay. Yeah, no,
Okay.
this is,
activities that we have.
well, I'd like,
on Main Street.
well, I'd like to hit the ground running and start scheduling, have programs ready from day one when we open, so,
That's why we're asking.
Yeah.
We're looking for
Yeah.
feedback.
yeah,
Arts and crafts.
all right, yes.
For children,
Not just for children, yeah.
For adults.
okay?
Have a program for that, yep. And we're gonna have a nice, a deep specialized utility sink in that program room to, that can be used for all kinds of different crafts, yeah.
Continued programs with wellness, holistic things.
Perfect, yeah.
Yoga, stress reduction, essential as all of that, really, especially now.
Thank you, yeah.
Other ideas?
And any kind of programs, I think, where you have presenters that offer on different topics of interest, like you've been doing your Thursday ones
Yep.
at the end of the month. But those are always interesting, whether they're related to town or interest of people. And you could do anything like genealogy, you could do things with history, you can do things with current events, all kinds of discussion groups. Photography.
Yeah.
Sorry, hand?
Is there, I grew up here, but I'm new back in town. Is there any sort of like youth mentorship program in town? Like, I know somebody mentioned tutoring, but I think in other towns there's like youth mentorship, almost like a big brother or sister kind of thing, where like older teens or young adults can, sort of pair up with kids in town to help mentor them in any aspect of their lives, whether it be like educational or recreational.
There is not right now. Many years ago, I think there was a program like that was relatively small.
Yeah.
And then, as unfortunately or fortunately, volunteers get older, they move away,
Yeah.
they pass away, things like that. The closest thing that we have to anything like that right now is that there is a Best Buddies program at the high school that pairs some of the kids at the high school with mentors. But those are kids who are special needs. There's been talk of developing a mentor program, a big brother, big sister kind of program. I know people have talked about it. People have shared different reasons to want to do it. You know, whether it's because there are single parents, or parents have disability, or one parent has disability, or a kid might have special needs, things like that. I've talked about it personally with the school system to kind of gauge the need, because I think, you know, the teachers and the counselors at the schools, the elementary school, especially the middle school and the high school, they're the ones who have information on what we need and who needs what. As an example, I'm going to be starting a program fairly soon at the senior center, which could eventually morph into the library. It's called GRG, which is Grandparents Raising Grandchildren. There are a lot of people in town. I'm raising grandchildren. My wife and I are raising 2 grandchildren who are now going to college. So I'm involved in that program, and I'm going to be putting together, or hosting, if you will. It'll probably meet every 2 weeks, Grandparents Raising Grandchildren. There are a lot of grandparents in the town who are raising grandchildren, either by foster or by guardianship. And those kids sometimes have, again, special needs, but a lot of times they don't. But there are so many reasons why grandparents need to raise their grandchildren. They don't have any other outlet or resources. So my hope is, by having this program, we may only start with 2 or 3 grandparents coming for the first month or 2 or 3. But maybe in a year we'll be up to 12 or 15 or 18 or 20 involved. But by doing that, that also is another way we can establish a mentor program. And we can look at other seniors, of course I'm calling myself a senior, thank you. But whether it's other seniors or other people in town who are willing to mentor some of these kids who are being raised by grandparents. Because I will tell you, as a grandparent, there's a heck of a lot I can do with my grandkids, but there's a lot I can't do. So that's an example of a way to bring mentoring to the town. That was a long answer, I'm sorry.
No, great.
Others?
More opportunities for genealogy resources.
Sure.
Because I know Somerset really has like a big
Okay.
program.
Sure.
So that'd be nice. Rehoboth has one that's more local.
Okay.
But this way, like Ancestry.com and other ones that, general.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Is everybody comfortable with the hours of the library in general?
I do want to point out, I've had discussions with the trustees. Right now, because we have the split location, and one of our locations is actually in Town Hall, and Town Hall is closed on Fridays. The library is closed on Fridays. But before we moved to the location we were in, the library was open on Fridays. So we had discussion with the trustees about re-engaging in Friday hours. So there likely will be a slight change in the hours, but it will be an increase. So that's something to keep in mind.
Any more questions, any more thoughts before we? Last but not least, if anybody thinks of other things, and you're not saying it tonight, either you're shy or you don't feel comfortable speaking up when saying something or sharing a thought, you can always reach out to me as the ADA coordinator in town. My email address is on the town's website, as well as my phone number. You can always reach out to Mark at the library, as the director of the library. Some of the stuff that you might think about, we can share with the building committee or, the friends or the trustees. But if it's just programmatic ideas, things like that, Mark needs to hear about that. The more he hears about, the more he can think about putting together and the resources and so forth as well. So as much as tonight was to educate you about the disability component, it's also, as I said, to get your feedback on anything else. So feel free to reach out to Mark. He's willing to listen. We're very lucky. He's very dedicated to making this project really successful. And with that, if nobody has anything else, last call.
I just have one more, sorry.
No, go for it.
Go ahead.
So for fundraising, not fundraising, but for the money that you have right now,
Yep.
grant, you're in a very good position. So even though right now we're not sure about programs that are going to be cut back, libraries is one of the big factors that people are concerned about. This will still go ahead as planned.
The building project?
Yes.
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
I wondered about that.
100%.
Having said that, the library, this project is fully funded. There's no question, as Mark said, that we're going to be short on
Yeah,
on
there's
dollars
no
for this
shortfall at
project.
all.
It's all allocated. We hold to the budgets clearly. What I will say separately is something, and the Friends of the Library have discussed this as well. On the state level, the library also, and Mark can share how this works because I'm not totally complete with it, but we do get some funding from the Commonwealth, you know, to manage the library. Every town does. But because of the way budgets are these days, it looks like the state is going to be cutting back on what they provide to the State Library Association. So ultimately, it will involve us as residents and other towns too, calling our state reps and state senators and saying, for House bill and Senate bill such and such, please don't, you know, eliminate the funding. Don't take X amount of dollars out of that. Mark, if you want to share a little bit, if you can, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, sure. So typically, when I apply for state, I apply for state aid every year, like all other public libraries. And Dayton, generally, we usually get about 17,000 each year. The next fiscal year, it may be less than that. We're gonna have to wait and see. I don't really know too much on that because that money hasn't really been allocated. The applications haven't gone out. It's really a two-step process to apply. You have to fill out this, like, I think it's like a 100-page application. Then you have to fill out something like a 25-page application. And then once you do that, they allocate funds accordingly. And we haven't even gotten to the first step yet. But yeah, there is discussions that funds will not be as readily available as they were in previous years. But the state has yet to approve its budget. I believe the House just passed its budget and has to go to. I should talk about things I don't know about. But the House passed, and then the Senate passes theirs. Yeah, okay. So we're not even at that. We're not at the stage where the Senate's passed theirs yet. So
No.
it's still, yeah.
And when we get to the point
Yes.
That you should reach out to.
Yes, that's right.
Well,
representatives.
Yep.
yeah, we will.
Because that's what brings it to the floor. So in the past, we were very lucky because we had two very strong library supporters, Mark Pacheco and Pat Haddad. They always supported library, things. And with our new representative and our new senator, we have to also let them know that libraries are important to us as communities.
I'm in the process through the Friends of putting together, I'll probably have it by the end of next week, just a simple, if you call your state rep or state senator, this is what you say. Hi, my name is so-and-so. I want you to know I'm supporting, House bill, Senate bill, such and such, because. And it'll be almost the same script for both. And it'll be available, I don't know if the Friends will have it up or whoever will have it up, that's to be determined, so that you can download it, or you can pick up a copy at the library, and you can use that to contact your reps and senators. The other thing that we've also talked about, for example, potentially to help ensure funding, is doing a call-in, so that like every Tuesday, each of these offices get a call from 10 or 12 people in town. If you get several towns to do it, it's not like the federal government where the senators and the reps don't do anything unless they get tens of thousands of calls. When a senator or a rep in Massachusetts gets a call from 10 or 15 or 20 of their constituents, that's a big deal, and they really have to think about it. So stay tuned, as they say.
Yes.
Kelly Dooner is expecting a call from either yourself or...
It would be the chair of the trustees, yes. I passed along that information.
Okay.
Thank you for providing it.
Anybody else? Any other thoughts? If not, thank you all for being here very much.
Thank you, everybody.
For sharing.
Thank you, everybody.
We'll do this again.